Welcome into episode 377 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget and Scott, the Bruins have been playing some better hockey as of late. They have their first 3-game win streak of the season. We'll get into all of that regarding their overtime win over the Red Wings, their recent win over the Blackhawks. But before we get into our opening shifts, Bridget and Scott had a wonderful interview with Phil Esposito that we dropped, I believe, on Wednesday, or was it Tuesday, Bridget and Scott?
Wednesday morning it went up.
Wednesday morning. And so that's on YouTube. It's on everywhere where you find our podcast. So if you haven't listened to that interview, please do so, not because it's our podcast, but because it's a great interview. And there were some really good questions that he answered that I won't spoil the answers, but I will tease some of the questions. And one was Bridget talking about what advice he would give to younger players today. And he had some really sound advice, which I found very interesting. Something I actually haven't really thought of. And of course, just talking about his career and the impact that the sport had in Boston, the team had in Boston on the sport. And Scott, Espo was he jobbed by Milek? What is going on there?
Yeah, I know. Apparently, yeah. I didn't know that story. So I don't, I'm sure he's probably told that before, but yeah, he was heavily involved in creation of a bunch of street hockey equipment, and apparently did not get proper credit and or money for it, and still holding a little bit of a grudge.
You might hold some grudges. We'll just put it that way. You might find out some of those. I'm probably already know some of those as well, but yeah. And he did talk about pasta, so that's interesting too. For even if you're from a generation that didn't really follow Esposito, we did talk to him about current stuff as well, NHL rule changes and how goalies are today versus back then, and just a bunch of different stuff, because he gave us a lot of his time. We didn't think we'd have him for as long as we did, but he kind of got on a roll just down memory lane and just wanted to keep talking. So and we appreciate it, because it definitely turned out to be a good interview.
Yeah, and he talked about reuniting with old teammates during the centennial celebrations.
Oh yeah, that part was funny, actually.
Trying to use Bobby Orr to block the wind.
Yep. Great teammate.
Yeah, so I would say for those hockey fans that go back, some decades now, you will love it, because it'll just be a stroll down memory lane, and you'll hear from somebody that you idolized and watched at one point in your life. And then for the younger generation, it's an opportunity to learn about the past and appreciate the history of the sport on a national and local level. And there's a lot to learn there. So there's something in there for everybody, as Bridget mentioned. Bridget and Scott, let's get right into your opening shifts as it pertains to the recent slate of Bruins games.
Yeah, so mine is that I remember saying on a podcast earlier this season that whatever the opposite of a magic touch was, that's what Jim Montgomery seemed to have, because he kept trying to change up lines. Nothing seemed to click. Even when you understood the reasoning behind it, it just wasn't working. Bridget on YouTube just dropped sad Monty. Joe said, Bridget, you're muted, so can't hear you.
It was Smug Monty.
Oh, okay.
Monty. I don't have a sad Monty. Maybe I should.
Joe Sacco right now has the magic touch. It seems like first off, I think he made a good move when he took over of leaving the lines alone for a little bit and kind of letting some stability and giving guys a chance to have some stability and familiarity. Now, in recent games, he started to tinker a little bit more, and it all seems to be working. We talked earlier this week about moving Mark Kastelic up to the third line and how that seemed to spark Charlie Coyle and Trent Frederick, two guys who needed more energy and needed to kind of be pulled into the fight a little bit. Well, we also see it on defense. He puts Nikita Zadorov and Brendan Carlo together, and all of a sudden it's like, that might be your new shutdown defense pairing, because they've been pretty good and they've been facing opponents' top lines. Puts Jordan Oesterle back into the lineup, and all of a sudden he's clicking with Charlie McAvoy, and that's been a really good pairing for 3 games now. And then on Wednesday night against the Blackhawks, Sacco changes up his top six towards the end of the first period and puts Brad Marchand, Elias Lindholm, and David Pastrnak together. They score 2 goals. That leaves Morgan Geekie, Pavel Zacha, and Justin Brazeau as a line. They also score 2 goals. So it's tinkering with a purpose, and it's been more piecemeal, sort of like one change at a time rather than, the wholesale throw everything in a blender that we saw from Montgomery at times. And it's working, and it's a credit to Sacco for, having the right messaging for it to work. And it's obviously a credit to the players who are just playing better in general. And I think have gotten their team game to a point where, anyone should be able to play with anyone, which is something that they didn't have to start the season. When everyone's off, it's hard for anything to click.
Yeah. No, it worked. I mean, the results are right there on the score sheet. And my opening shift has to do with the combo of Marchand and Pastrnak together last night, because Marchand has the 2 goals. I really thought he was going to have a hat trick, and I was sitting on a stat that was he had a hat trick a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. It was like December 3rd last year, and it would have been December 4th this year, and that was his last hat trick as well. So I thought he was going to have it. Even though they pulled the goalie, it was a weird situation. Marchand wasn't even on the ice, I don't think, when there was an empty net, really. But yeah, so he scores twice, which really upset Paul Bissonnette, by the way. And and Pastrnak was such a big part of it that I feel like I want to give him a lot of the credit. And Bissonnette also gave him a lot of the credit just to give Marchand shit. But Pass had 2 great setups. The first one is this awesome cross ice pass, goes right through the slot, perfect. Marchand puts it in. Second one gets the kind of like pass off pads, shoots the puck, bounces right to Marchand, scores, like easy rebound goal. And Pastrnak, you saw, he made a few weird decisions with the puck in terms of shooting it himself, but when he was making plays and when he was looking to pass, he was making a lot of really great passes. And he had another one at one point during a power play to Zacha, I believe, or to Lindholm, and that one didn't end up going in, but it was another really awesome. And I don't want to call it a no-look pass, because he's just kind of deceptive with his body language, I think. But I mean, some of his teammates that have played with him for a long time know what he's doing, like Marchand and Zacha, but the other team, you can tell, have a much harder time reading what his body language is saying he's going to do next. So I thought he had a really good game. Marchand, obviously, and you mentioned Morgan Geekie also had 2 games, probably his best game of the season, at least on the score sheet.
2 goals.
There's no arguing with that. So yeah, he had a good game as well. The first goal that he scored, though, was, I don't think he was with that combo, right? He was.
So he
was right before.
He was. So he was with. It ended up being a Geekie Zacha Brazeau shift, but it was before Sacco had changed to that. It was a mid-line change. So Brazeau was still on at the end of the shift, and made that really nice play to hold it behind the net. And hit Geekie coming right off the bench.
And he had the primary assist on both of those Geekie goals. I should give him equal credit to Pastrnak, because he had good setups as well on both of Geekie's goals. And he's been playing, guys, he's been generating offense in different ways too. Like, he's been patient. He'll pass the puck up in front of the net. He draws defenders to him. And then also he just hangs out top of the crease and causes chaos, including on the power play. He has the Bruins' 2 most recent power play goals, 3 on the year, and he's been good. I thought he's been helping them, especially since Sacco took over. I feel like you've noticed him more.
Yeah, I think Geekie's had a bit of a kick in the ass for sure. I think that Justin Brazeau's been playing some good hockey too. He's right now ranked 3rd on the team in scoring, but beyond that, you're just seeing a player getting more and more comfortable. He kind of came on like a flash in the pan last year. And then just like the entire team has had a slow start, but you can see Brazeau was playing with confidence last year when he came up. And I think he's starting to reestablish that knowledge in his mind that I can play in this league and be be a productive player. So that's good. You put him with Zaka, and Zaka's been getting going the last few weeks as well. And yeah, Coyle and Frederick, look, they still have to get going overall. I mean, Coyle has 1 assist on the season. I believe he's got 7 goals, but to have 1 assist through almost 30 games is a staggering number. So hopefully Kassler can help, like we talked about last episode, bring them into the fight, but they do have to get going, those two still. And then, yeah, Marchand and Pasternak back together with Lindholm. Hopefully that gets Lindholm going. I think that's the goal there, is like, how do you not get going over a stretch of games if you're with 63 and 88? And I think that first goal from Marchand was a big reminder of, it was the first time in all year that I've seen that set play where you went, you, at least with success, you win the face-off back. Pasternak is on, he's on the boards, and he sees that one face-off and he just books it around the net, gets himself available to the weak side defenseman from the face-off side, and just gets it to Mark. Like, that was vintage offensive zone, predetermined play. And to see Pasternak just kind of, like I said, get moving right away with the speed, the movement without the puck was evident on that play. And that's what Pasternak has to do to get back to where he usually has been. So yes, a lot of good tinkering from Joe Sacco, a lot to talk about with potential line combinations and whatnot. Something caught my ear after the Red Wings game, and I'm going to tie that into my opening shift. So Bruins are 6-2 under Joe Sacco. They're right now 3rd place in the Atlantic Division, points wise. I'd have to double check on the point winning percentage, but they're 6th in the Eastern Conference. They're 11th in the NHL overall. Their goal differential as a team right now is -13, and I believe it was -21 when they fired Monty. And so the moral of the story is they've been playing more structured hockey under Joe Sacco, and of course they're currently riding their first 3-game win streak of the season. The comments I wanted to jump back to after the Detroit game was from Nikita Zadorov. And Bridget, I do believe you were in the scrum because I saw a video from you, but
I have the quote. I actually was going to bring it up as well.
The X's and O's one?
Yes, I'll read it.
Go for it.
He said, someone asked, is there a difference since Sacco took over, like kind of X's and O's? And he said, I think we're playing with a passion, playing with pride, and playing for each other. I thought we were disconnected before. I think that's what wasn't working. I don't think that we fixed much X's and O's. I think it's the same system, same game plan. We're just doing that, like executing this time.
So, guys, I think we should start the podcast here just because it's kind of fresh in our minds. When I heard that, I don't think Zadorov was saying that to say like Monty was the problem, but you hear him say that it wasn't an X's and O's thing. And unless it was just a coincidence that the firing of Monty woke them up and made them more passionate. But I guess my question would be, why was there a lack of passion prior to the firing? And was it just a perfect storm of negativity and poor play? Maybe. So I don't want to draw too many conclusions from those comments, but they just were interesting to me. And I wonder what you guys made of those.
Yeah, I feel like up through Montgomery's firing, I feel like there was just like a perfect storm of bad stuff coming together. And it's like, I don't know what came first, but we've heard all about the disjointed training camp, and guys were banged up, and Swayman's absent, so he's not up to his usual level out of the gate, like all that stuff. And it's like, I think that contributes to a slow start. And then when you get off to a slow start, you're not playing the way that you want to play, like then it becomes hard to like find that passion, like pull yourself out. Like it almost becomes self-fulfilling, where it's like, oh, we're playing like crap, so I'm gonna feel bad. And then because you feel bad, you continue to play like crap and you can't pull yourself out of it. And it's just this like tailspin that you just can't get out of. And sometimes it takes like that shock to the system to just reset everyone. And in this case, it was firing the coach. And I feel like that's kind of like exactly what happened. Where I don't think like I don't think they lacked passion or energy or whatever because Montgomery was the coach and they didn't like him. Like I don't think it was that, because I think if you're a player and you like your teammates, like you should be able to go out and bring that out of each other, regardless of who the coach is, right? Like the coach, maybe you can blame for X's and O stuff, or maybe you can blame for not, pressing the right motivational buttons at certain times. But ultimately, like players should be able to bring that out of each other. But sometimes it's just hard to do that when things are already going wrong and you just can't pull yourself out of it, and nothing seems to be working. So, um, yeah, sometimes it takes that firing, or it could have been a trade or whatever, um, to wake everyone up and to kind of jolt them back into having that passion.
There is kind of like I mean, it's different. Like you can sense the difference, obviously watching it, but also just after the games when we talk to the guys, like you can sense a little bit of just a different tone or a different energy. And I would say that I think Zadorov is telling the truth, and it's not because they didn't like Monty. It's just because sometimes, and it was clear, like the coaching change was like almost their last hope to try to get things on track before it was too late to grab a playoff spot, or you're getting yourself too far down in the standings to make a comeback at some point later in the season when you do try to finally get things going. But I think also for the new players, it was a jolt, because you come in and you're expected to play really, like, you play a certain style, play a certain way, have certain production, and then uh, you don't do it, and then you probably feel a little bit of responsibility on yourself, the same way that the captains do, the same way that other guys who weren't producing do. But it's pretty stark to be like, okay, we started with this guy and now he lost his job because we just didn't do what we didn't have the passion. And it is kind of crazy how psychologically a coaching change without a system change works, and did work in this case so far, at least. Who knows, maybe they fall into the same patterns eventually, but it doesn't seem like that's what's happening right now. So we had that question. I think a lot of people asked Sacco when he first took over, what are some changes you're going to make? And he was like, kind of like, TBD, we'll figure it out. We might change some, like, who coaches power play. It doesn't seem like all that much has changed in terms of their game plan, but the results have changed definitely.
Yeah, and like I said, the comments from Zadorov, they just made my ears perk up a little bit. But after thinking about it myself, I came to the same conclusions that you guys just laid out, which is it wasn't that they were not playing passionate because of something that Monty was or wasn't doing. I think Scott, said shock the system. Like that, I do think, yes, it all went back to the summer and training camp and injuries and this, that, and yes, a perfect storm of issues. And yeah, I do think they liked Monty, and I do think Monty was saying the right things. And I think sometimes in life, like you just get in a funk, and you there's not one thing that you can do as an individual or a group to change things as much as you want to. And then it's almost like you have to, it sucks because the coach loses his job, and like that's somebody's livelihood and their
He
family
does
goes.
have a new job though. Maybe they don't feel quite as bad now that he win.
No, that's true. That's true. But I think the best way to describe what happened to the Bruins and why they're, because the question I asked was, why was there a lack of passion before and why is there passion now? I think the answer has nothing to do with Monty. I think you can equate it to like a cold shower. Like the Bruins as a team just had to, like, they just got a bunch of cold water dumped on them like a polar plunge, and yeah, it shocked the system, and now they're slowly playing better structurally. Offensively, they're still challenged a bit, although you look at the last 3 games or 3 or 4 games, and what do they have? They scored 6 goals twice. They scored 4 goals once. 3 against Detroit. So like they're getting there. But up until I'll tell you guys, that Detroit win was huge. And I know some listening might say, look, Brian, that's great. You're trying to be positive, but their 3-game win streak you're talking about came against the Canadiens, the Red Wings, and the Blackhawks. And I would say to you, I got it. I understand what you're saying, but you have to play the schedule in front of you. But I will say they're losing to the Detroit Red Wings 2-1 in the third period at home. And like we've seen all year, I was expecting that to be a letdown game after what was a strong couple of 2 games. And they had every reason to lose that game again, like they have all year, 2-1 at home, and have a shit third period at home and score 1 goal against a bad team. And they were able to turn it around with a power play goal off of a face-off win and a quick shot from Lohrei, a tippable shot that Brazeau puts in the back of the net. And then you find a way to win in overtime. And I'm telling you guys, I think if you lose that game, I'm not saying it makes or breaks the season by any means, but it turns into a, rinse, wash, repeat. Here we go again. And they were finally able to break that pattern. And I think that was a big win despite the team that you did it against.
Right. They finally won with their B or even like C+ game, which this team wasn't doing. Like, it felt like they either needed to play like almost perfect in order to win, or they were just playing like crap and like bringing their F game. They didn't have like that in between level where it's like, okay, not everything's clicking tonight, but we're gonna grind it out and find a way. And that Detroit win was that. And even the Chicago game like certainly started like a bit of a grind. Like, I thought that, it's 1-1 late in the first period, so like there were goals, but that was a pretty slow, kind of just sloppy, disjointed first period for both teams. And for the Bruins, it was totally understandable because it was back to back with travel to a different time zone, which doesn't happen often during an NHL season. It was also 6:30 Chicago time start, so you're even losing a half hour off normal. So like I expected a bit of a slow start from them, and honestly, like not that you want to like give anyone an excuse ahead of time, but I was like, I kind of would have understood if last night was just a crap game, because that is kind of it's their 6th game in 9 days. It's a back-to-back, the travel, all that. I was like, I actually kind of would have understood that, and so that's even like more encouraging to see them not allow that to happen, like to actually battle through that kind of early sluggishness and then start to take the game over and ultimately finish it off in the third period and come away with a 4-2 win.
Yeah, and I think, Brian, you said it was like a cold shower. I was thinking of it like a fresh start. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever had a fresh start. Like, I don't know if you guys ever like transferred to a different college, or I know you didn't, Scott. I don't think you did either. But like, take a new job.
You don't have to transfer when you go to the greatest college in the world. So
you're talking about UMass? No, it's like you start a new job or you get a new apartment, or like you just have this different, like, unexplainable like boost of energy and positive feelings about like, all right, everything that I was worried about in the past, like, okay, say like graduating from college, like I was super stressed out. I graduated, I was like, I can forget about all of this. This is amazing. So sometimes you just like have to put it in the back of your mind, and this gives you a reason to like have a new beginning. And they definitely got a redo on the season. Like, pretend this was the start, redo. We're good. We're looking more like we thought we would.
Yeah, and part of that has been their defensive structure has significantly improved. I mean, they were it was a major leak in the ship when Monty was here. Like, it was going down, and that's been patched up. And now it's like, okay, we need to get the offense going, and you're starting to see it, right? Like, your offense has to start from the back end. Ironically enough, it starts in your own end. It starts in being able to defend. It starts with back pressure. It starts with transition. And Charlie McAvoy has taken major steps, I think, since the Centennial game. And Scott mentioned the Zadorov-Carlo pairing. They're looking better. I think you put Lohrei with Peak, and it allows him to kind of be the alpha on that pair as it pertains to puck movement and skating abilities. Sometimes when you put like-minded individuals with, similar attributes together, it's tough to really it's tough to delegate and to balance when you go, when I go, because you're both capable. Sometimes it's good to have some polar opposites. Now, obviously, Zadorov and Carlo are more of a shutdown pair, but you get what I'm saying as pertains to the puck movers. But up front, you're starting to see.
Zadorov and Carlo's personalities are pretty opposite, I would say.
Yeah, I think Zadorov's he's probably one of the major characters in the league. He's very transparent. He's a media member's dream, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty transparent. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to say things. I feel like Carlo is very calm and reserved, and Zadorov is I'm going to poke someone, slash someone, do whatever. I don't think you never see that kind of stuff out of Brendan Carlo, but it's just different personalities.
Yeah, and actually, when we were talking about the slow start and new guys trying to get incorporated, probably almost 2 weeks ago at this point, we talked to Zadorov on a practice day, a few of us in the media, and I don't know how much of this made it to the video the Bruins posted, but Zadorov said that he was figuring out what worked with his new teammates and what didn't in terms of his personality in the room, and he was asked why what wasn't working, and he was like I don't know if everyone quite understood my sense of humor when I first got here, and he was and I don't think it was really landing because we weren't playing very well. And it's even something like that, where it's Zadorov has this reputation of having this big personality. And I know he was loved in Vancouver, that team wanted him back. And he comes somewhere new, and it's not that he's practicing a stand-up comedy routine or something, but it's just figuring out what works with your new teammates, or it would be any of us going to a new job. It's yeah, you're not gonna immediately be able to make all the same jokes you made with your old coworkers, so
feel out the water,
Yeah, right. So
because I'm pretty sure one of the early videos where they it was Zadorov trying to prank them kind of, and he's asking people what's heavier, 100 pounds of feathers or 100 pounds of steel, and then he goes, I'm gonna get Jonesy's dumb. And I just wonder if he was maybe going too hard, or people you don't know me well enough yet to be cracking down. But I mean, you'd think that all of them could.
Yeah,
they handle chirps, they dole chirps out all the time. So
yeah, Nikita Zadorov, TD Garden by day, Kyle Loon's Comedy Club by night. But yeah, so it starts in the back end. It starts with team defense and transition. But as it pertains to the forwards, you are starting to see a little bit players starting to trend towards, where they could or should be, trend towards. Not there yet. I mean, you look at David Pastrnak right now, he's less than a point per game, right? So that's not his pace normally, but he's starting to close the gap a little bit. Players are starting to close the gap from where they were projected to where they have projected have performed in the past. Marchand's up to 20 points. I think Sacco and Lindholm, they're on pace for around 40 points, but obviously if they get their offense continuing to produce, that will obviously incrementally jump up as well. So projections are starting to trend upwards here as we start to close the calendar year, and that's important. Obviously, there's still some guys that, like I mentioned, Coyle he had a good week, couple back-to-back games with some goals, but again, his assist numbers aren't there. So it's a work in progress, but they're starting to get there. So I want you guys to comment on that, and then just his confidence is getting better. It's okay, Bridget. His confidence is getting better. I want you guys to comment on that, and then also, do you see room for any call-ups potentially at the same time, even if players are starting to trend forward?
Well, my concern at this point is Trent Frederick. I feel he's been Coyle has started to get things going, whereas I feel Frederick is at times I felt along for the ride a little bit. And not like he's definitely not the driver of that line and hasn't been the whole year. I'm hoping that more time with Kaslik brings more of that like passion out of him. The way that Kaslik plays is the way that Frederick could at least come close to playing in terms of being physical and being intense and just trying to change the dynamic if there needs to be more energy in the game. But I'm encouraged by what Coyle's been able to do recently. And I just still haven't seen that sign from Frederick. Maybe you guys have seen it and I just am missing like some of the small plays that he's making, but he's just hard. It's just harder to see his like a difference in his energy level compared to the others.
I don't agree actually. I feel like I have seen a pretty noticeable uptick in his energy since Kaslik got put on that line. Like just stating my opinion on it. I think he's been much more involved.
I think the first time they put that line together, yes, but I haven't seen it consistently.
I mean, I think the Detroit game, they're very physical. Like Kaslik and Frederick both got credit with 8 hits, which I think might be slightly inflated, but there's no doubt in my mind, like they were both really physical in that game. Yeah, you still want to see Frederick produce more. So like that still has to come. But I definitely think there's been an uptick in his energy and physicality and kind of being more on top of pucks and, you know, arriving on time. So I'm not saying he's there yet and I'm like totally happy with his play, but I do think there's been a change. I feel like the last 3 games have been, you know, 3 of his better games of the season and at least trending in the right direction.
But is that because the other games previously were like even more quiet? Like,
well, yeah. I mean, yeah, he had very long stretches of doing nothing this season.
Yeah.
Is there a window, guys? Like, do you want to just keep the roster as is right now, or are you thinking to yourself maybe, you know, Matty Poitras comes back into the fold at some point, or maybe they give Lysell a look at some point? I'm not saying these guys are lighting the world on fire in Providence, but are you seeing a situation right now where the NHL roster, you know, deserves or has earned some more leash here before some call-ups, desperate call-ups or whatnot, or has somebody earned a call-up? What's the landscape looking like between Boston and Providence right now?
Well, I kind of feel like they've earned some leash to answer the question the way that you put it. Like, I feel like even McLaughlin has done pretty well. And so like that call up has at least worked with the fourth line and not like adding a whole lot, but definitely he can come in and be a solid fourth liner. I don't think you're shaking up the top 6, which would mean you're probably not bringing Lysell up. And I don't think that they want Poitras yet because they're trying to develop him in Providence. And if Coyle is playing better, then like, you know, where would you put him? You put him in for Trent Frederick? I guess you could. That would maybe be the spot you do it. But I just don't think that it's on the horizon, and maybe until we turn the page on to 2025.
Yeah, I think at the very least, you're at a point where you're starting to get better results. You're starting to see guys pick up their game. You're starting to see some line combinations click and show some positive signs. You can at least ride that until someone forces your hand. Like, you know, if Poitras or Lysell or Merkulov goes on a tear down in Providence and forces your hand, great. Then we can talk about finding a spot for them. But that's not happening right now. Like I'm just looking at it. Poitras has 2 points in his last 4 games down in Providence. Lysell, same thing, 2 and 4. Merkulov, 1 point in his last 3. Like, those guys aren't forcing your hand right now. So make them earn it. Like, I'm not in any rush to bring anyone up if they haven't, you know, completely forced their way on, which, you know, Mark McLaughlin did, right? Like, he went on a 5-game goal scoring streak down in Providence, and when they called him up, Sacco said that was part of the reason, was like he had earned it. He was playing the best hockey of his AHL career, and they wanted to give him a look. And now he's earning, you know, more playing time and a more at least for right now, like a steady spot because that fourth line with him, Beecher, and Koepke has been really good. By the way, that was the line that the Bruins used against Connor Bedard on Wednesday night. And they shut him down. Bedard's line had one scoring chance in 6 5-on-5 minutes against them. So like if that line's doing that, then you're not breaking that up. You're not sending McLaughlin down. You're not taking him out for Tyler Johnson, who's not really a fourth liner. So yeah, I absolutely give this current lineup a little bit of a longer look.
Yeah, with Kastelik up on the third line, like that opened a spot for McLaughlin, and because Kastelik is playing well with the third line, that probably lets McLaughlin stay longer, because Johnson's been out of the lineup the past few games, and I just think that is working. And I want to mention this person too because he was a call up a little bit before McLaughlin, but Oesterle is also kind of running with the job too. So those were two call-ups that happened recently that appear to have solved, or it looked good on the ice. When you see Oesterle McAvoy, you're probably like, you just brought your call-up guy and you put him with your best defenseman. Well, it's worked. And Oesterle actually has been in the NHL for a while. He's bounced around different teams, but he's played chunks of seasons in the past. Like he actually played when he played a season in Chicago, he played 55 games and he was averaging over 20 minutes of ice time there. So it's not like you're just bringing up a guy that's just an AHLer. Like he has the NHL experience too, and it's worked with McAvoy. It's been an option for the Bruins to use, and that was the right call up.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I don't think now's the time to make any lineup changes. I think that they're playing some of their best offensive hockey of the season, believe it or not. And they're stringing together some wins here. And I do see the chemistry that you guys have been talking about with some of these new combinations. And so to answer my own question, I don't think now is the time of all times this year. As it pertains to Oesterle, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I said that like maybe a few months ago, maybe it may have been during training camp or short, maybe probably during preseason. But, it's funny because he actually, in my opinion, it's not apples to apples, but the way he kind of skates and tries to think the game and move the puck, it is kind of Matt Grzelcyk-esque. And I'm not saying he's as good as Grzelcyk because he's not, or as effective at what he does as Grzelcyk was in Boston because he's not. But I don't think it's a total surprise you're seeing McAvoy feel some familiarity there stylistically, and it's led for him to, and I'll take that one on the chin because when Grzelcyk was here, I would talk about how I see the benefits of those two playing together. I see how well they play together, but I did think that McAvoy was getting a little bit run over on the forecheck, and I thought that having maybe a bigger body with him could protect him physically and give him more room to do his thing, kind of be that alpha with the transition. And when you have, but clearly the first quarter of this season, the best he's looked has been with somebody who stylistically reminds me of Matt Grzelcyk. And so I think that's just interesting to point out.
Yeah, and we've seen McAvoy play with a bunch of different partners this year, and obviously Lohrei is a different kind of puck mover than Grzelcyk or Oesterle, but like he brings something different and he has also played with McAvoy. Then you've had Zadorov with McAvoy for stretches. Times when I've thought that combination looked pretty good, other times where it wasn't really clicking. But obviously that's a completely different dynamic. And I think we said this going into the season, and we thought you would see a lot of mixing and matching on the blue line just to capitalize on matchups or game situations. But we were saying that like as a positive, like they're gonna have so many good things on the blue line that you can put anyone with anyone. Well, then the team struggles, and now it's like, okay, you can't put anyone with anyone. You just have to find something that works. And now that you're starting to get more defensive structure, like I think we can, maybe still a little early, but like I think at some point here, if the structure holds up, and they continue to play well as a team defensively, you're going to see them be able to do a little bit of that mixing and matching again, where, okay, it might be Oesterle with McAvoy in certain games and matchups and situations, but you're probably going to see Zadorov there again. You're going to see Lohrei there again. You're going to see
Hampus.
Zadorov with Carlo right now. You're going to see Lohrei with Carlo at some point. Yeah, Hampus Lindholm's going to be back. We think at the end of the month, maybe it goes into early January. But yeah, like we know he can play with Carlo. I wonder if you'll see him tried with McAvoy at some point, which is still in my mind is like something that should work really well, but kind of hasn't yet. Like it just has never really quite fully clicked, but you could give it another look at some point this year.
Do you guys want to talk about Four Nations, or do you guys have any
I definitely want to. I have one more comment for you guys, and I wanted to get your opinions on the power play. I think it's very evident the Bruins have been trying to have a shot mentality right away and kind of attack and I still want to see. I do want to see some more strong side wall positional play for David Pastrnak at times, but I just think you look at Lohrei in the Detroit game with the Brazeau goal. Last night off a face-off, there was zero hesitation from McAvoy. I think it was the first period, right to the net. So I think you're starting to see them, like they're starting to practice what I'm sure has been preached. I think the results are still yet to follow, but you keep playing the right way, those should be shortly behind.
Yeah, I agree. Like the shot first mentality you like. I feel like their entries, while they could still use work, have gotten better. I think we've seen more clean entries where they've actually gone over the line, kept possession, been able to get set up. The one thing I just can't explain is why so many guys still look so jittery. Like the puck's just hopping off of sticks. McAvoy had one just to pass back to him at the blue line last night that he completely fumbles and loses out of the zone. And it happens with Pastrnak sometimes. That's one thing where I'm like, I don't know if that's nerves, if it's guys putting pressure on themselves, but I tweeted during the game last night, there's times where Pavel Zacha looks like the only one on that top unit who has any composure with the puck on his stick, where it's okay, it gets to Zacha and you're like, all right, that's at least gonna calm things down, and here's a guy who's gonna handle it cleanly and free up some space for himself. And then he moves it to someone else, and it's all of a sudden it turns into hot potato, and it's bouncing all over the place. And it's I have no explanation for why that continues to happen, but that to me feels like the biggest problem right now is again, guys just aren't composed and aren't controlling the puck cleanly, and I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I think there's
I think Lohrei has done it too on the second unit.
Yeah, I for some reason it's this personnel, they hear footsteps. They tend to hear footsteps whether they're there or not. And if I'm an opposition and I'm running the PK, I would be saying pressure McAvoy, pressure Pastrnak, because I don't think anybody, any player loves getting the puck on your stick and feeling somebody coming at you. However, to your point, Scott, there are certain players that have that ability to kind of get those Spider-Man senses and slow everything down in real time and just have that composure. And yeah, they get the jitters. Pastrnak gets the jitters. McAvoy gets the jitters. I think a lot of it too is and that's why I'm so adamant on you have to get Pastrnak on his strong side wall, because when you're on your offside half wall, you're kind of flat-footed and you're on your heels a bit. And so if the PK is pressuring you, you kind of feel like you're already being backed into a corner. But when you're on your strong side wall, you can use your body shield. Yes, exactly. You use your outside edges. You can turn back towards the wall. You can use the bumper. You can see the ice more. And I think that's why positional play can help mitigate some of these jitters, I think. but there's no doubt that they don't like being pressured. But every power play gets pressured here and there, and Kucherov has composure. All the best guys have composure. So another way to mitigate that is having support close by, and it's just a work in progress.
Yeah. And by the way, like if we're looking at and there's obviously always going to be the temptation to put Pastrnak in his spot, so to speak, where you just tease it off, and it's been successful in the past. But I can maybe think of once or twice it's worked this year. I feel like maybe just I haven't like written it down like how many times he's missed from that spot versus how many times it's been successful, but like guys are blocking those shots this year. Goalies are moving post to post because they know it's coming. Like the element of surprise with that is gone. And now then it comes down to executing it the right way. And the pass has to be perfect to get the shot off in time and to beat the goalie sliding. And there's a good enough reason to go away from it and do what you said, Brian, just because the results haven't been there with it. Give it a different look. But maybe he is saying he's more comfortable over there, and that he has some say over that.
Maybe, but the lack of element of surprise that you're talking about it's absolutely true. But there's it's not a surprise anymore because he's not moving. Like if he's over the course of 2 minutes on a full power play, if he's moving around the offensive zone and changing his side, you're confusing the PKers. You're getting different looks, and when you're in motion, when you're coming back to your weak side after not being there, like there's just different ways to do it. But to win a face-off or lose a face-off, but gain zone entry and then just go right there and stay there. Yeah, like I don't know how Alex Ovechkin has gotten away with it for 20 years. I don't know how they don't cover him. But he's the only anomaly. Like you have to move, and if you want to win a face-off and go there right away for a one-time opportunity, that's great. But you have to be able to move around, and that's how you get open.
Well, it's him moving around in it, but it's also better movement from everyone else on the power play to open up those chances. Like I was going to bring up Ovechkin, and since you did, it's like Ovechkin doesn't move either, and obviously he's arguably the greatest goal. I mean, he's going to break Gretzky's record. He's arguably the greatest goal scorer in the history of this game. But he also had guys who were making things happen away from him when he didn't have the puck that then opened up a lane to him, whether that's John Carlson at the point or for years, Nicholas Backstrom on the other flank or TJ Oshie is a guy who really mastered the bumper spot. Like you had other threats and guys who made things happen. And that teams are forced to defend. So when you're like, how the hell did Ovechkin have any space there? And it's like, well, because Oshie was going to score from the bumper, or Carlson was going to come motoring down the slot, or Nicholas Backstrom was going to make a play. So if other guys aren't doing good enough work away from your biggest threat, then it's much easier to key on the biggest threat. So that but I agree that because the rest of the unit isn't working well enough, Pastrnak does need to move around. Like that him standing still is not an option if everything else around him isn't good enough.
Yeah, this was like 8 years ago now. I once had first row seats to Bruins Capitals, and Ovechkin did not move for like the 2 minutes straight on the like he just was in the same like within he'd skate like 5 feet this way, 5 feet that way.
He could play on like a 45-minute power play and not get tired.
No, he did. He took like an 8-minute shift. I was like, what is this? What is going on? I'm exaggerating, but like he was out there I'm like, you gonna let anyone else play? Like he just stayed out there for a long time and never really hustled back the other direction. But yeah.
And part of Scott, those are great points you make. Part of if part of what you're saying, like Brad Marchand, like you guys making plays, right? Brad Marchand, I feel like they've made an effort to kind of put him down low more now, and that's good because it kind of frees him up. Like I don't think for players around Pastrnak to make plays, I don't think Marchand on his half wall is a good position for him to make those plays as well. So I think, yeah, that's a great point that you make, and I'm certainly not trying to make this all on David there, but you have to put people positionally in places to succeed that complement their skill set and the way that they see the game. And I think that's starting to happen a little bit, but one game at a time, I suppose.
All right. Do you want to get to Four Nations, because I'm pretty excited about Four Nations, guys?
Yeah, me too. Maybe not as excited as the TNT broadcast yesterday, but pretty excited. Scott and I hopefully are going to be able to be there covering at least the Boston part of the series. I'd love to go to Montreal, but I think that's just too much time. It's because it's not just like a 2-day thing. And I don't think Scott can handle 4 days in Montreal. I think that would be a little too much for him. So.
Yeah. No, I could barely handle 2 last time. So
yeah, that was a close call.
Yeah. So the rosters for all 4 teams, U.S., Canada, Finland, Sweden, got announced on Wednesday, and Bruins will have representation on 3 of the 4 teams. So we already knew from over the summer, Charlie McAvoy was one of the first 6 announced for Team USA. Brad Marchand was one of the first 6 for Canada. Jeremy Swayman also made Team USA as one of the 3 goalies, along with Connor Hellebuck and Jake Ottinger. And Elias Lindholm made Team Sweden. Couple notable omissions as it relates to the Bruins. No Hampus Lindholm on Sweden. Obviously, his injury factors into that. So, really unfortunate timing for him, especially because Sweden does have a pretty loaded blue line that he would have been fighting to get on anyways. And Jonas Korpisalo, I thought, had a shot for Finland as one of the backups, getting off to a good start this season, but he did not make it. The 3 Finland goalies were Jussi Saros, who will be the starter, Kevin Lankinen from the Canucks, and Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen from the Sabres. So I don't know if you guys want to talk about the Bruins aspect, or just thoughts on the teams in general, or what you're excited about, or wherever you want to go.
Well, I will say Swayman makes it, right? That was kind of a question mark. It became a question mark. Swayman got announced, could be the 3rd string guy, which, by the way, I'm not sure how much time the 3rd guy in net's going to get for any of these teams.
I'm going to guess 0 minutes.
Yeah, because I feel like it's almost like an injury thing. It's like, okay, you're there if someone gets hurt, or like it's a blowout. I don't think they're going to get a whole lot of time. So he's on the team. Is he going to play? Not sure. But Korpisalo doesn't make Finland, and he has a better stats than Swayman in every category this season. So it's just probably disappointing to be Korpisalo and be like, well, I've been playing pretty good. Didn't end up making it. I saw a lot of projections that had him on it. I personally thought that he did enough to be the 3rd goalie. Maybe neither of them would have played. Got there and just would have been on the team. Sure, it's still good experience to play with your national buddies, but yeah. And then Don Sweeney is GM of Canada, and I kind of wonder how much time he's been spending like splitting up his time between what do we do in Boston, because he has not had an easy start to the season, and also trying to make final roster decisions for Canada, because they had him on the broadcast yesterday talking about like how he had a lot of difficult decisions to make. I'm like, I hope his energy was with the Bruins and not on these difficult decisions for Team Canada.
So I'm just super excited to see best on best. Obviously, with only 4 nations involved, it's not a complete snapshot of best on best, but you do have the 2, I guess outside of Russia, but you have 4 of the top 5 nations in the world.
It would have been nice to see Czech too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they'd be good. David Pastrnak was asked over the summer on some platform that it could have been nice to maybe have like a combined, team for some of the European nations, but
yeah, they're not happy about it.
No. Maybe with more time to plan, they could do, more than 4 teams in the future. But this at least this will scratch our itch until the next Olympic Games. in a couple
Yeah.
years?
Next year,
I asked Pasternak about it. Hold on.
I was going to say next year is going to be the Olympics, so you won't see anything like the Four Nations next year, but then following year potentially.
Yeah, sorry, I had something. I had a pop-up ad playing, but I asked Pasternak about this in February, which I think is when they announced the tournament and announced, that NHL players would be going to the Olympics, and he said about the Czech team not being included in Four Nations. It's a huge disappointment. I don't know how much I can say. Definitely not happy about it. I'm not going to watch the tournament, to be honest.
I think that's the sentiment of a lot of the Czech guys, and I'm sure other guys around the league. But like, Czech feels like they would still have a good team. I mean, they don't have Krejci anymore, but they still have plenty of good players around the league, and two of them are on the Bruins. And it's always fun to watch Pasta play for Czech Republic because brings something out of him. We've all seen it when he plays internationally, like the pride he has playing for the Czech Republic. So yeah, it is kind of a bummer because that would be two other Bruins that you got to watch just extra hockey from.
So guys, who are some of your surprise makes or snubs, and who do you think is the favorite for this tournament? I look at Team Canada, and I look at their forward group, and unless I'm missing him, there is no Connor Bedard, but you do see some more sandpaper than you would ordinarily see in a Canadian lineup up front. I mean, players like Sam Bennett, Brandon Hagel, Travis Konechny. So I'm not sure if they're trying to match stylistically some of the sandpaper with the U.S. team. You got Brady Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk, try to mitigate that with Sam Bennett. Some other I'm not really sure if that was part of their plan. I guess we could maybe ask Don Sweeney at some point. But what do you guys think of the rosters and the favorites and just the some of the surprise makes and snubs?
Well, they mentioned last night about 10 times that Connor Bedard didn't make it, but Connor Bedard hasn't had the best start to the season. Like, we know he's on the trajectory to be one of the great players, but his start was slow. He started to maybe the last few games put a little bit like more offense up, but I don't know if he necessarily earned it. So, and clearly it wasn't decided that he did, so he didn't make it. Could he have had a good tournament with the guys that would have been around him? Of course, he could have, but yeah, I don't know if he did enough to deserve it. So people could call it a snub, but I mean, he'll have plenty of other times to play international hockey, like as his career grows, and maybe he puts up a better case for himself.
Yeah, I think the argument, like, I think everyone kind of understood, just on its merits, he wasn't really playing well enough to earn a spot. I think the argument was, bigger picture. If, say, you're just looking ahead to the Olympics next year, does it benefit him and benefit Canada to get him this experience? But, which I think, like, that might be a factor with Swayman going over someone instead of, say, like Jonathan Quick, where it's like, well, Jonathan Quick's been around and he's having a good year backing up Shesterkin, but Swayman might actually factor into USA Hockey's international plans for years to come. So, yeah, you're going to, you bring him as a third goalie and at least get him around that kind of environment. Again, I don't expect him to play. Connor Hellebuck, I think, is going to play every minute for Team USA. And if he doesn't, Jake Ottinger is probably next up. So, I think both. I think the Canada and US especially, you can tell, clearly opted for, trying to actually build a well-rounded roster with roles in mind, and not just running through who are our top 13 scorers. Okay, let's take them. Because even the US, you look at some of the guys who got left off, like Cole Caulfield is off to a great start in Montreal. Clayton Keller is having a good season in Utah. Jason Robertson didn't make it. A guy who's scored 40 plus goals in the past. Tage Thompson didn't make it. And instead you have these guys who are, definitely more role players, like less dynamic offensively, like a Vincent Trocheck or Brock Nelson, Chris Kreider, who can kind of do everything, even if he's off to a little bit of a slow start this season. So, I think these teams, like, they built squads to win, which is exciting because I think they're not just treating it as like a tune-up for the Olympics, where it's like, well, let's just bring a bunch of young guys and get them experience. I really think these management staffs built teams that they believe give them the best chance to win a short tournament. And we'll see, right? Like, obviously, if one of these teams, if the US or Canada especially doesn't score enough and that's why they don't win this, then they're going to get criticized for leaving the skilled guys home. But you understand the thinking that went into this.
Yeah, I mean, but even then, it's like you still have the, like the utmost offensive talent. So it's not like you can't look at this U.S. roster and be like, oh, they don't have enough offensive players. Like they still do. But I know what your point is, because it's all relative, because all the rosters have the best of the best. So one other thing that I've really looked forward to in these tournaments, and it's been a while since we had them, so it just kind of popped into my mind as we were talking, is the element of teammates in the NHL that are going up against their fellow NHL teammates in a tournament this is not just like a fun mid-season tournament. These players, Brad Marchand said on TNT, Charlie McAvoy mentioned it on TNT, like you dream of winning a Stanley Cup. You also dream of going to the Olympics, and you dream of playing for your country. The pride that these guys are going to have playing for their country, and even a short tournament, is going to be through the roof. And if there's any element of fans thinking, well, if McAvoy and Marchand go into the corner together, that they'll go easy because they don't want to hurt their chances as Bruins teammates after the tournament's over. I don't think that that's going to be the case. Like I think they're going to play as hard as they can on each other, and that's so fun because, okay, it sucks to think about potentially two Bruins going into the corner and somebody getting hurt, but at the same time, if you take off the Bruins glasses, it's like it's going to be so fun to see Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett, two guys that are probably best friends. They just won a championship together. They're Bash brothers together, but in these few weeks, it's going to be Matthew Tkachuk representing USA and Sam Bennett representing Canada, and they're going to go at each other like it's for the Stanley Cup. You would have to imagine.
They're suddenly going to realize how annoying each other is.
But isn't that going to be so fun to watch? I mean, Matthew Tkachuk won't think twice. He won't think twice about giving Alex Barkov a little cross check in the kidneys against Finland. And that, to me, because these guys are best friends. They're in some cases biological brothers, but if that's the case, they're on the same national team. But they're brothers, and they're in each other's weddings. Probably, like, they would kill for each other. But in this situation, all bets are off, and I think that's a really fun dynamic that we haven't had in quite some time. And that's why the Olympics with best on best is always so fun.
Yeah, I like to see Marchand and Crosby play on the same line. That's always a fun one. And when it used to be Bergeron, Bergeron was on the team as well, and see what guys he was combined with, and that's always fun.
Marchand and Bennett. So it goes the other way too. It's like adversaries in the NHL that are now teammates. It goes both ways.
Yeah, I've seen some projections that have an all Nova Scotia line, Marchand, Crosby, and McKinnon, which would be a lot of fun. Like, those guys train together in the summer. They're all good friends. Like, that'd be quite the line. And then, you'd still have Connor McDavid on a separate line, which is crazy.
Do you call that the second line, or would he be the first line or the second?
Yeah, it's like, I think whatever line McDavid's on has to be the first line. But yeah, it's like, and that's the other part of it, is some of these guys who we haven't seen get to play in a big international tournament like this, like McDavid, or like Austin Matthews on the U.S. side, or Jack Eichel. Like,
McAvoy's missed out on a lot too.
Yeah, Cale Makar for Canada. Like, these guys, there hasn't been a tournament like this since the 2016 World Cup of Hockey, and a lot of these guys were too young to play in that and then missed the last two Olympics
Still
because
in
the
college,
NHL pulled
man.
out. So,
That was a long time ago.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, like that tournament, if you go back and look at those rosters and you're right, Scott, a lot of this US and Canadian rosters right now for this tournament, they were teammates for Team North America.
Yeah.
So, like even that's fun here because the last best on best, they were teammates, Canadians and Americans.
Well,
and yeah,
to explain to people that might not know what we're talking, like Team North America was the young players. Was it 21 and under or something? Like it was the young
I think
players.
it was 23.
23 and under. So like at the time, I know like wasn't it like Johnny Gaudreau was on that team, and like it was the best of the best young players from both Canada and the US. So it was an interesting dynamic. Now they didn't really compare to the other teams quite yet, but
They were good though.
They were good, yeah. But what did they finish? They didn't.
It was close. I think they just missed advancing, but like they were coming on, and yeah, like that roster had McKinnon, McDavid, Matthews, Eichel, like all his teammates, and in fact, Austin Matthews hadn't even played an NHL game yet. This was the September before his first season. So yeah, it was a fun tournament. But anyway,
Team North America finished 5th out of 8. They finished ahead of the US.
Yeah.
Team Europe was the runner-up in that tournament.
Yeah.
That was like the same. I think that was like guys left over from countries that didn't have like a full team.
Right.
Yeah, it was like Eastern Europe.
Like I think like Leon Draisaitl was on that team because he was Germany. Germany didn't have a team.
Yep. Chara, others. Yeah. Zuccarello. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's gonna be great. We're gonna have more time to talk about the 4 nations, and we'll break it down in real time as well. So, Bridget, Scott, any final thoughts before we depart here?
No, I think I'm all good.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Well, thank you all very much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, thanks for watching this Skate podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.